like somebody trying to be released from Egypt. Let my people go!
Welcome to We Are Libertarians on May, what is today, the 30th?
I think the 31st.
31st.
Going to have to pick it up over this music here.
The end of May. I am the host for the day. My name is Creighton Harrington. To my left is Chris, and to his left is Chris. Chris Galt and Chris Spangle. Say hello, fellas.
Hey.
Hey, fellas.
Zombiepocolypse?
Pretty much.
Yes.
I just would like to begin the program by stating that while my face may look delicious, it tastes terrible. So please do not eat it.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
that
so I guess...
poor guy.
This may be the most disturbing story I've ever heard in my entire life.
And I kind of am not very squeamish, so I looked at the pictures and watched the video and stuff.
That guy has no face left.
It's like...
It's his goatee area. That's all that's left.
It's crazy, and I was just reading articles about it, and apparently all in Florida is all this stuff happening. People are getting rashes in schools that no one knows what the heck's going on, violent outbursts, on top of the man getting his face eaten off. Some dude just cut his stomach open and threw his intestines at the cops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, gosh. I think 2012 is the end of the world for real, and I think it's because of the zombie apocalypse. I mean...
Is it because they voted for Mitt Romney?
It is.
That's probably what it is.
It's punishment.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, because let me tell you, you've never had fun until you've sat down and tried to explain to a gubernatorial candidate named Rupert. I made the joke about how my face wasn't delicious, and he just looked at me like I was eating a face. And he's like, What are you talking about? And I'm like, so I explained this story. I said, all right, so there's this guy, and from all accounts, the guy was a really nice guy, really well-liked in the community, perfectly a gentleman, if we will.
Yes, and the guy that did it, apparently had like
one thing on his criminal record. He got arrested for possession of marijuana one time.
Right,
I think is all I saw.
And he said I guess he said that day he didn't even want to go down to South Beach because there was going to be a bunch of cops there.
Right,
and he ended up going down to South Beach, and that's where he came from.
Gonna go down to South Beach. Gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. But I guess he's walking down the road, and the video is a security cam. It's terrible quality. It's way too far away. But
you wanted that in high def, did you?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen the video.
You can just see basically figures moving.
Yeah,
but
don't.
But so this guy's just walking down the street, and there's this homeless man sitting on the side of the road asleep. And this dude just comes up and knocks him unconscious and just starts eating his face, literally eating his face off. And I mean, it's not funny, but
yeah, well, wow.
But at the same time,
the cop shot him like
the cop shot. And the thing is he acted like a zombie. I mean, outside of the eating people, he acted like you would see in something in Dawn of the Dead. He was, for some reason, he stripped himself naked, but he's eating this, and you can see on the video. You can't see him. You can't see any like specifics, but you can see him hunched over him like an animal. And he looks up, like he'll be down, and he'll look up and look around like an animal, and then he'll go back to it. Cops show up, and then they shoot him. He doesn't stop. They kill him, and it's just like.
And they shoot him like 6 times.
They took six times to get him to finally stop, and it was just a regular local patrolman who happened to see it. People were biking over this bridge, and they were stopping and like yelling and throwing things at the guy, trying to get him to stop. And what they discovered is that he had been smoking bath salts.
That's what they said.
Yeah, so he was smoking bath salts, which is apparently the new hip thing to do.
Remind me never to do that.
Right. And
I will turn into a zombie.
So people get these bath salts, and it has methamphetamine and THC-like properties. It's sort of a hallucinogenic. And so this guy, I guess, was a really nice, again, a gentleman, and then smoked some bath salts, and the next thing you know, he's this monster because he went into what's called cocaine psychosis. And cocaine psychosis, you just go nuts. You literally lose your mind. He probably had no concept of what he was doing, and he stripped naked because you get so hot that you're just trying to get cool. And he attacked the homeless guy who had been homeless for 20 or 30 years, had a long rap sheet, but still.
How do you explain the guy that was throwing his intestines? the same week.
Because it's a conspiracy. It's not
Listen,
bath salts.
I mean,
it's the zombie
if I'm running from the
apocalypse.
police, I'm not throwing my intestines at him.
You know,
I'm not gonna
here's
rip
the thing.
my stomach and throw my
Florida,
guts at him.
Florida. If you ever listen to Loveline back in the Adam Carolla days, they used to have a game called Florida or Germany, and they would find a really weird story, and it would always take place in Florida or Germany, and those two places just
The weirdest places on
attract
Earth.
the weirdest stories, and you never could tell if it was Florida or Germany. I mean, I've always joked that Florida is home of crazy people and deadbeat dads. You know, because they don't go after you if you don't pay child support in Florida, so it's a natural haven. And they have a tremendous problem with prescription drugs. It's just a really weird place. The sun just does something to the people down in Florida. So I'm not a zombie apocalypse kind of guy, but apparently you guys are.
Well, December's coming fast, man.
I know, man.
Damn
December
millennial,
is coming fast.
damn millennial generation. You
All
kids.
I know is
Wouldn't
I
that
won't
be
be
crazy
ready.
though? I mean, all joking aside, of all the possible ways for the world to end, I mean, you got like you could blow the world up, comet hit us, global warming could end up being something that just goes crazy and day after tomorrow stuff. I mean, all these different things that could be the end of the world, and the freaking zombie apocalypse.
you
is
want
how
to
the
open
world
up a
ends.
lab and get a dog.
What?
Creighton? I Am Legend.
No.
Oh, okay.
You know that was originally about vampires? That book?
No, I didn't.
Yes, the original
Wow.
story was about vampire. Okay, we're getting off topic. What,
What else is new? This is my favorite. My normal routine is to wake up and I read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the Daily on my iPad. This morning, I woke up and I read Reddit pictures, so I was really wasting my time. This is my favorite LOL of the morning. If you know the meme, go to Quick Meme and look up Bad Luck Brian. Wins free trip to Miami, gets face eaten off.
Oh my gosh.
Bad Luck Brian is the best. Finally gets on TV on 1001 Ways to Die. So wins free concert tickets to Nicki Minaj. So
well,
we are clearly out of things to talk about today. It's been a total of 15 weeks that we've been doing this podcast.
really,
This is our 10th episode, our 10th official episode, even though we've done about 13 or 14.
Spangle.
And it only took 10 episodes to absolutely run out of anything to talk about.
well, is there anything off the top of your heads we could talk about?
Let's talk
First.
about the story that we were talking
Okay,
about before. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I was my girlfriend. Me and my girlfriend went to lunch with her aunt and uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's ever seen my truck, I have bumper stickers all over the back of my truck like a crazy person.
Of course you
I
do.
have Ron Paul 2012, Ron Paul Revolution, You Are Not Free, Jefferson saying the government should fear the people, in the Fed. I just have a ton of bumper stickers that basically say if you're tailgating me, this dude's crazy, so don't tailgate him.
Creighton, imagine that. Creighton's truck is as verbose as he is.
Oh, yes. But anyway, so
Do you have a bow tie, too?
no, I don't
Such a
have
typical libertarian.
I don't have a bow tie.
A million
I
bumper
have,
stickers and a bow tie.
I have a Mises and a Rothbard tie though, a regular ties. So anyway, we drive to her aunt and uncle's house. They're in town from Arizona, so it's not really their house. But anyway, park out in front of the house, go inside for a minute talking. And we're leaving. We're riding with them to go eat lunch, and as we drive by, they clearly can see my bumper as we drive by, and I didn't really think about that until it happened, and immediately her aunt goes, "Oh yeah, well, I like Ron Paul on he's got some good ideas, but on that foreign policy stuff, I mean, you can't just let people alone because then they'll be in your backyard, and I'm not trying to make fun of her or anything, but I was so in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, because you don't want to make fun of your girlfriend's family.
I mean,
you know?
it was just like I didn't want to make fun of her. I wanted to kind of so I very casually I was like, well, he's not so much for that. He wants, he thinks that interventionism causes more problems than it solves, and constitute blah blah blah.
Creighton,
and I tried to be very polite
Creighton
and cordial
trying to
about
politely use common sense.
it.
How'd that work out for you?
it was kind of like it was a little awkward. It was just like
it's really intense debate.
No, it wasn't a debate.
No,
I just kind of said she's kind of like whatever, and then it was over with. But it was like I felt so kind of uncomfortable because I had so much I wanted to say.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like I can't.
Because then if you go down that road and you start giving an explanation and defending him, then you get what I get with my family, which is, oh, he's talking about politics again. Here he goes again. He never shuts up. Oh, he's so long-winded. And, like, I get that because I go to family functions and I don't want to talk about politics. That's, like, work. I don't want to talk about work at family functions. But because I'm the political guy in the family, people ask me questions. And then, without fail, my brother or sister will go, oh, here he goes again. So you don't want to get that reputation either, which is like,
Oh, well, I have that reputation with pretty much everybody I know.
Right.
Except that, and I was just trying to be nice because I didn't want to argue on the way to the car. And, I knew I wasn't going to be able to convince them otherwise in the car. So I was just trying to be like, yeah, well, I give a little bit of defense to Ron and then move on. And they're from Arizona, so they wanted to talk about like the Arizona immigration bill and all the drug cartels coming over and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of talked about that and stuff. And that was
what, did
fine.
you get into religion next?
No.
Like, what are you trying to do? Get yourself dumped?
We didn't talk about that, but it was just like, it was one of them situations where it was, I was such in a rock and a hard place. I could not. I looked over at Allison and she gave me this look. She was just like,
"You're on your own, pal."
Yeah, and it was.
Is she political?
No, she is. She is the opposite of politics. I mean, she loathes politics. The only time she ever really talks about it is like she's like, "I'm voting for Rupert."
She voted for Newt Gingrich.
She voted for Newt Gingrich because she thought he looked cuddly.
He looks like he's full of flatulence. What is she talking about?
He looks like Satan himself.
I think he looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
He wakes up, looks in the mirror, and says,
looks angry.
Well, that was my story from the weekend, and they're nice people. I'm not trying to make fun of them or anything. We just had a disagreement on foreign policy, and it was just funny because I was kind of like, I can't. The girlfriend's family can't. I have to be polite.
Be careful.
My wife is. It's not that she hates politics, it's that she's completely uninterested, which I have no problem with. Some people, they, when they're involved in politics, it's a thing for a couple to do. For us, not so much. Like, it's, she's like, oh, you're so smart. And then that's her standard line. Like, I literally could give less than half of one crap of what you're talking about, honey. So
so she's the one feeding your ego.
Of course, no, I do that enough. I take care of that on my own, pal. I'm I'm a self feeder.
I've gotten that reputation for my girlfriend. And the minute I start talking about politics, she's
Here
just like,
he goes again.
Yeah, pretty much she just gets mad at me and is like, I don't want to talk about it.
That's
and
how most.
like,
I think that's how it always is.
It's like I always turn on
women.
We're kind of weird.
Women,
turn on the TV and Fox News or CNN or MSNBC's on, and she's just like, oh my god, it's always on when I turn on.
Turn it back to The Sopranos.
Oh, not The Sopranos. She watches the Style channel and all that.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
HGTV.
Honey, don't turn it. It's based on a true story.
Anyway, I thought we were going to
make up for how bad this is.
I thought we were going to.
We'll get into Syria in a minute.
Okay.
Listen, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but maybe the people listening do too. Like, it's the beginning of summer. Memorial Day just happened. It's a 4-day week for most people. We're going to talk about some politics today, but right now we're feeling a little punchy. So my wife will literally watch Lifetime for like 9 hours on a Sunday, and will DVR them. The ones that she's seen 9 times, she'll still DVR them. I'm like, oh. So we have come to a common ground of shows that we'll watch together. Mostly like Storage Wars or Pawn Stars or like...
Pawn Stars is great.
Pawn Stars is a great show. I'm actually... It's not really a hard read if you can imagine this, but I'm reading Rick Harrison's book, The Guy That Runs the Pawn Shop. So apparently the old man's first job at 14 was driving a school bus.
Wow.
Could you imagine driving a school bus at 14?
It's awesome. So, be like... I mean, that would give you
You're
so
like,
much pull. Like,
I rode a bus at 14.
Right.
I drove it.
These damn kids. So we've settled on those shows. Duck Dynasty. If you're not watching Duck Dynasty on A&E, you are missing out on a treat, sir.
I don't even know what
it
that
is.
Just by the
Fantastic.
name, I have to assume that you are lying out of your face.
It is, or what's left of it. It is basically the Beverly Hillbillies meet Seventh Heaven. So this family gets rich off of making duck calls. So they're basically just hillbillies with a lot of money, and then they're like, it's just fantastic.
Oh,
So
I
you need to check
actually,
that out.
part of my soul died the other day. I realized that there's a reality show about Clint Eastwood's family.
Really?
Yes.
I hear his daughter's like floozy.
The Eastwoods is what it's called.
Wow.
From what I've only seen the one episode my girlfriend watched when she was over, and you didn't see much Clint Eastwood. In fact, I only saw Clint Eastwood at all in the promos.
Clint
for upcoming
Eastwood's
shows.
like a curmudgeon-y 80-year-old libertarian. I'm sure that he is not into being on a reality TV show.
That's what I hope. But the thing is like it's there, and it could totally ruin one of the most awesome people in the world. You know?
Right.
It's like, no, this is Clint Eastwood. You don't make a reality show about Clint Eastwood, but it's more about his wife.
Do you guys watch Mad Men?
Not really.
Not
No?
yet. I
Oh,
want to. though.
You should. It's
on Netflix now.
it is
So,
like, yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna watch it,
it-
sooner or later.
it's like a work of art. But this last week episode just left me feeling dirty. Just was
Yeah?
like. It was the first time I've ever watched a TV show, and I turned it off and I said, I really don't think I should have watched that. I just feel like my soul hurts. So you'll have to watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Game of Thrones season finale this Sunday.
I haven't
70
seen, like,
minutes?
I haven't seen like the
What?
last 2 or 3 episodes.
The last episode was the best episode ever.
So don't tell me anything. So
All
we
right,
can't even.
but I can give you a hint of why it's the best.
Uh-huh.
It's the only episode so far written and directed by George Martin himself.
Oh,
So
wow,
it's super
okay.
detailed, it's just to the book, and it's
Okay.
amazing. They spent $7 million on one scene. You have to see it. You
One
have to see
scene.
it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great show. I mean, it is funny how if you watch HBO shows or even some Cinemax shows, not Cinemax, Showtime,
Californication.
you can learn more about politics from watching The Sopranos and The Wire and Game of Thrones than anything you'll ever learn in college. And I hate to burst. If you're going to college for a political science degree, just watch The Wire. That's all you need to know about how politics really works. Have you guys seen The Wire?
No.
Oh.
I've heard it's really good.
What
though.
are you doing over there? I know he reads books, but
I've been catching up on Battlestar Galactica and Community.
okay. See,
Those are my two that I'm
Creighton
watching
is
right
the
now.
one that reads books. So when we have serious discussions,
I'm all around nerd.
when we have these political discussions, we rely on Creighton to carry the weight. But when we talk about television,
me.
when we talk about television, that's your domain, son. And you haven't seen The
I've
Wire.
seen some of
No.
The Wire. I haven't watched.
I'll
I've seen
I'll
like
download
the first
it though.
2 or 3 episodes.
How many seasons have they had?
It's
canceled. It's
It's over.
Yeah.
been out
How
for
many
like
seasons
2
was
years
it?
now.
I think it was 4 seasons,
All right.
4 or 5 seasons, and
It's about
I'll watch
Baltimore.
it.
It's like about Baltimore cops, is what it's
Okay.
about.
the guy who ran The Wire, the showrunner for Wire, also did Homicide: Life on the Street. He's a former Baltimore Sun reporter, and he also is doing Treme on HBO, which is another great show about political corruption in a city. And you want political corruption, New Orleans is where you go. And the reason I say you get a good political education watching these shows,
Yeah.
things like The Tudors, things like The
Have
Wire.
you seen Battlestar Galactica?
I've never.
It's
I've heard
really
good,
political
yeah.
as well.
It just
So
shows you
Star Trek,
sort of the intrigue
Stargate.
of politics.
Star Man,
Star Wars.
So
Star Wars. The prequels were very, very. I mean, the acting's bad and all that kind of crap with Hayden Christensen, but the political twist, I love it.
So, you know, that's the glamorous side, I guess.
Ides
you know,
of March
what?
movie. Ides of March.
Haven't seen it.
We're talking about political things.
He's trying to
in
finish
shows
his
and
point.
movies.
Yeah, I was
we keep
trying to-
interrupting him.
All right, so let's talk about the best political movies of all time. Let's go there.
Oh.
I mean,
Best
if we're
political movies.
we're gonna waste time and
Have you
one
seen
episode.
Game Changer yet? And is it good?
Yes,
I
yes.
have not
it is
seen
good?
it.
Game Change is good. I watched it like twice in a row. I stopped it and I
Ooh,
restarted
I haven't
it.
seen it yet.
I
love
need to
it
get
either.
it.
I read the
Or
book.
download it.
So if you haven't read the book, you should read the book too.
Best political movies. Let's see here.
Game Change.
The
was-
Matrix.
Game Change was
No.
really good.
It's more
The
philosophy.
Matrix.
That's more
really?
of a philosophy movie.
We're not talking
Whoa,
about
whoa, whoa.
pseudo.
We're talking legit political.
Yeah, I mean political. Let's talk about political movies.
I kind of, you ever seen City Hall with John Cusack and Al Pacino?
No.
That one's pretty good. It's one of those ones that came out in the 90s and it was kind of like, oh, it was in theaters for 2 weeks and went to video in like 2 weeks later. But it was pretty good. It's about Al Pacino's the mayor and John Cusack's his campaign manager from the South, and there's like this kid gets shot in a shootout between an off-duty cop and a drug dealer, and it just like they start investigating why the cop was there and all this kind of stuff, and it just like all the points lead up to the corruption in City Hall, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty good movie, I guess.
What's the Abraham Lincoln movie that just came out?
The Conspirator?
Yes,
I haven't seen
Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yes, that actually looks pretty badass.
No, The Conspirator is pretty good.
Stop.
I bought it. It's pretty good.
What is that? What is that about?
It's about the whole conspiracy to assassinate Lincoln and his cabinet.
Yeah,
Basically,
I haven't seen it,
it's from the point where it's really following the perspective of the lady who let the conspirators stay in her inn, and she gets put on trial for conspiring with them.
One that I like is Charlie Wilson's War. I think that's a really good one. Have you guys seen that?
I haven't seen all of it. No.
No, it's about Charlie Wilson. It's sort of abhorrent to a libertarian, but it is a good movie. It has Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and Charlie Wilson basically started funding the Afghan rebels and the insurgents and the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviet Union in the 80s. And that's one of the reasons that the Soviet Union lost in Afghanistan, and some of the weapons that are being used against us by the Taliban in Afghanistan right now are actually American weapons.
And that's funny that you bring that up, because I was watching Hannity the other day, and it was
what?
Don't you know what? Whatever. But anyway,
really?
Brayton,
I wasn't at my house.
That was right after.
Please tell me someone like tied you down and made you watch it.
I wasn't at my house.
Right after a Rachel Maddow marathon.
Anyway, the point. I have a good point. So he brings on the Ground Zero Mosque guy, and he's basically brings this guy on to try and be like, "You're terrible and rah, America," and all this kind of stuff. And then the Ground Zero Mosque guy basically goes in with his tail between his legs and is like, I'm sorry, I said all that stuff. Well, one of the things that Hannity's mad about is that the Ground Zero Mosque guy blamed America for 9/11 because of what we did overseas, and blamed America. And he's like,
that's a good Hannity impression.
Yeah. Well, the
I
thing
thought I was
is,
in the room with him.
You bring that.
You're a great American.
Well, I don't have a Nerf football to throw.
Okay.
But he, I just wanted to be like, does Hannity realize that Osama bin Laden basically knows how to kill people because the CIA trained him to do so? It's like, we kind of gave the Mujahideen all of their tech knowledge and all of their fighting knowledge and all that crap. That was our stuff. I mean, I wonder if Hannity knows that. Well, I'm sure he does. But
what's that movie with Martin Sheen's the president?
That's The West Wing, isn't it?
Oh, that's a show.
Yeah, you're thinking of the show The West
I've
Wing.
only seen a little bit of it, and I remember it being really good.
Have you guys seen? All right, don't laugh. Have you guys seen Dick?
It
has the two girls, and they befriend Richard Nixon.
It's been so long since I've seen it.
It's one of my favorite movies.
She falls in love with Richard Nixon, doesn't she?
Yeah, you have to know a little bit about, or a lot about Watergate, so you probably should watch like Frost Nixon was pretty good, or Nixon, or All the President's Men. Those are all pretty good movies. But you have to have a working knowledge of the Watergate scandal to get most of the jokes in Dick.
Yeah, isn't it? The point is that these two dumb bimbos end up being Deep Throat, and they didn't even realize it.
And that, one of the girls goes into Nixon's office and finds the tape recorder in his desk and says an 18-minute love letter to Richard Nixon in his tapes. And so Nixon is sitting there, and he hears this tape of this 18-year-old girl falling in love with Nixon and talking about how great he is and how much she loves him. So he erases the tape, and that's where the gap came from. It's a really funny movie. Yeah. So that's right up there with one of my favorite movies.
I don't know. Mostly political movies tend to be kind of like something I don't really agree with, but they have bright spots. Like the American President has one of these spots where Michael J. Fox is arguing with him, and they're like, they want leadership so bad they'll follow you to the desert, and if there's not there, they'll drink the sand and stuff. And
they're usually just good like speeches or one-liners in movies, like The Siege.
The Siege was a good movie though. The whole movie was good for that one because the whole movie revolved around that idea. It wasn't just that scene.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen The Siege or not. Go see that.
It's on
movie.
Netflix.
It's on Netflix. And the crazy thing you have to keep in mind when you watch it is this movie came out before 9/11.
And it's about 9/11.
It's
basically.
so pretty much about 9/11. Like it's unbelievable. It even takes place in New York. I mean, it's so crazy. It's like this dude had to like come back in time to make this movie.
Have you guys seen Dave? That's one of my favorite ones. Dave,
is that the one with the president?
It's
the guy that looks just like the president.
Kevin, what's his face? He went to IU. Kevin, I'll think of it later.
I know what you're talking about.
But
he played in Wild Wild West.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Dave basically is a presidential impersonator. And he lives in Washington, D.C., and he runs like a used car lot, and then he makes money on the side by being a presidential impersonator. Well, the president has like a massive health issue and is incapacitated, so they ask Dave to act as the president. So that's a really funny movie. If you've never seen it, it's...
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's Kevin Kline. That's what I'm thinking of. That's a pretty good one.
A lot of the older movies had some, like, I mean, of course, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
That's probably my all-time favorite movie. I love Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
It is such a good movie, and
that's Jimmy Stewart, where Jimmy Stewart basically is this Boy Scout, and there's and it's based on a true figure in Missouri politics, a guy who basically put Truman into power. This political boss in Missouri puts up Jimmy Stewart because he's a pushover, he's a Boy Scout, sends him to Washington, D.C., and he sees the corruption in D.C., and there's the famous filibuster scene. And, you know, you watch that movie, and that's one of those movies that, you know, it's from the late 40s, I think, and not really much has changed. When you start to see the other senator that Mr. Smith idolized, and he's corrupt, but he doesn't want to be corrupt. There's a conflict within that senator. You see basically our political system, and it's been that way for 50, 60, 70 years,
and
maybe 100
what's
years.
cool about that is, you know, when that movie came out, I mean, there were tons and tons of, you know, just people so mad at the people that go to Washington are respectable, they're upstanding, they're patriots, and rah, 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 because, you know, Copra just comes out and just says that these people are, like, you know, very corrupt and all this stuff. And it's like, it's funny because nowadays it's kind of like a given. Most politicians are corrupt.
Right.
But back then they were like so upset that he would even, you know, it was just like, it's cool. It's weird to look at, you know, how far things have come as far as, you know, how people think of Washington.
And I look at it and I mean, that's really what's changed is people have figured out what Washington really is. Back then, people wanted your child to grow up to be a senator. You know, and I guess maybe some parents still do, but right now you can find someone who believes that we didn't land on the moon before you can find somebody who thinks Congress is doing a good idea.
Yeah, it seems like people don't think that if you go to Congress and become a representative in the House, you're not like the Henry Clay kind of figure, you know, statesman, you know, standing up and defending whatever. You're going there on like behalf of some douche.
Yeah, I really think that's something we have to understand now as the sentiment's changed. Like last semester at school, we did the symposium that Joe Hauptman and Rupert sat on, and it was just all about the distrust of government on all sides. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what's changed since then is that people don't trust the government anymore.
Yeah, people don't trust politicians.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that we as libertarian candidates are even starting to see as a third party, as, you know, independent of the political machine that Republicans and Democrats have built. You go canvassing and you go to knock on somebody's door, and they don't even care what party you are. They don't even care if you're running for office. It doesn't matter how few corporate dollars you have. It doesn't matter how independent-minded you'll be. If you're running for office, they don't want to talk to you.
Right.
I mean, did you experience some of that with Coleman's campaign?
Yeah, and if they did want to talk to you, they wanted to know if you were the incumbent.
Right.
Because they don't like you if you're the incumbent.
Yeah. And Ed was a libertarian incumbent, which was pretty unique.
Yeah, it was. We had to explain that to them. And
Well, I don't know. I feel like, a healthy distrust of government is always nice. I feel like, back in the old days, prior to the early 1900s.
But do we have a healthy distrust, or is it unhealthy at this point?
I think it's just all Republican and Democrat bickering. I think it's just, I'm an R, so everything a D does is wrong, and I'm a D, and everything an R does is wrong. So I hate you, and that's I don't want it to become that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, working in this field, doing this as a job can be difficult because there's a large segment of the population that just hates you because you have a letter next to your name and you talk about politics and you do that for a living. And it is kind of bizarre. I mean, it depends on who or what you are. If you are the subject of another movie, we could talk about political documentaries too. Lee Atwater, The Boogeyman. That was an interesting documentary.
That dude was crazy.
Yeah. Lee Atwater was sort of the mentor to Karl Rove. And Atwater was the driving force behind the Willie Horton ad with George Bush Sr. If you don't know what the Willie Horton ad is, look it up on YouTube. It's one of the most disgraceful things that ever took place in American politics. And he just was the type of guy that pushed dirty politics, pushed us to a place that people stopped trusting political rhetoric. And, his end, they document his demise, I think it was from cancer. It was actually kind of sad. I mean, it was, he just was kind of alone at the end. So it's really an inside look at how politics works, and, we talk about it all the time. Where's the line for your integrity? And that really kind of makes you think about it a lot. So check that documentary out. It's Lee Atwater, The Boogeyman. So it's a pretty good documentary, even though...
It's on Netflix.
Yep, it's on Netflix. So is Street Fight. We've talked about that with Cory Booker. Cory Booker is somebody that is sort of Twitter famous right now and is pretty well regarded. He's the mayor that ran in to save the woman in the fire and the one that was in the kerfuffle over... disputing the president, fighting over Romney's Bain Capital record. And this documents his first run for mayor of Newark against a pretty big political machine. And it's a really interesting documentary. It shows how grassroots politics works. So that's on Netflix. Another one that I really, really like is Can Mr. Smith Get to Washington Anymore? And this guy named Jefferson Smith is running for Congress about 10 years ago, I think. And the documentary shows, can this guy named Jefferson Smith, who has a similar background to the character in Can Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, can he get elected? And can he win his race? And, shows some of the tactics that he used to get elected for grassroots organizing, things like coffee fundraisers.
Did Joe the Plumber win?
I don't think he did. I don't think so. One other documentary that I think is kind of interesting is So Goes the Nation. It's a documentary about the 2004 presidential election and how George Bush won, and a shift in American politics towards micro-targeting. So that's sort of an interesting documentary because George Bush should have never won that election.
The brilliance of Karl Rove.
Right. So it kind of documents all that. So check some of those out. I'll give you another.
I just got his book, Karl Rove.
Courage and Consequence.
Yes, I've just got it.
Did it burn your fingers when you held on to it?
He has no courage, and he does not accept any consequences. So it's sort of a purposeful title. Did you guys see The King's Speech?
No.
Have you guys seen any movies?
Yes.
Okay, what movies have you
maybe.
seen? Dude, Where's My Car? Are you familiar with
I
that?
actually have seen that movie.
Seen that. I watched good movies.
I mean, Star Wars, the original. All the Star Wars had their political tint, and the prequels, the political side. But when you weren't listening to Hayden Christensen cry, the political side was pretty cool. I mean, one of the greatest quotes ever. So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
I never saw any of these Star Wars movies, the 3 ones after.
You've never seen Star Wars?
I've seen the first 3 when I was like 4.
I'm going to bring in the...
Dude,
I have the Blu-ray box set.
This is America.
You're going to borrow it from me. You're going to borrow the Blu-ray box set from me.
I watch...
You're going to watch them.
Like, on my Netflix, it's like political fight the system documentaries. That's what I get recommended. So, or
dude,
documentaries.
The prequels are... I mean, they're such an allegory for, like, the emperor coming into power is like Nazism and Hitler going to power. A lot of it's kind of like the death of Rome. You know, the death of the Republic is similar to the death of the Roman Republic. I mean, it's so
The rise of the empire.
George Lucas was really into, like, you know, history. I mean, even the first three, I mean, they're just basically everything you've ever thought of as far as like an ancient hero's quest. And that's what they are. I mean, it's Luke Skywalker on the hero's journey. And I mean, even Chewbacca looks like Enkidu from Gilgamesh. I mean, the littlest things are the similar to all the...
Explain what Gilgamesh is for
Gilgamesh is like the very first like story ever.
Yeah.
That's been like discovered in writing.
Do you know what the Epic of Gilgamesh is?
Nope.
Nope. All right.
Okay, but so I mean, there's all these different little things, but the first three tend to be more focused on, I mean, you know, Anakin's descent into madness,
Right.
But also the political side, the death of the Republic, and how, you know, this guy works the system and basically pits everyone against each other and perfectly
Senate, yeah.
takes over through the completely legal means, as far as like. I mean, it's really good, and it's really
everybody knows he's evil, but they can't stop him because he hasn't broken any laws.
It is funny to see the stories are as old as man. You know, where you see the rise of an empire, the waning of a republic. You have a small group of revolutionaries who are fighting to maintain that republic. Those stories are as old as time. I mean,
Cicero was probably the Roman Republic.
100%.
Yeah, I mean. And it really is. I mean, I think George Lucas, for all of his faults, he does a really good job when in those movies of. I mean, yes, Jar Jar Binks and the
Jar Jar is probably my favorite.
The casting of Hayden Christensen, those were bad ideas.
I don't even know. I have not seen the movies, but I even know that he's stupid.
Come here, sir. Let me show you my kingdom.
Yeah,
underwater.
But
you need to read more Gilgamesh.
Yes, but it's really good. I recommend if you want to see some, just
I'll check it out.
Get past the bad acting and the Jar Jar Binks and go, because Ewan McGregor is the only acting that keeps that thing alive, and Ewan McGregor does a good job.
And
the Emperor that plays plays Senator Palpatine in the first three is the same actor that played the Emperor in Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
so.
I didn't even know that.
It's the same actor.
Oh.
Wow.
It just is fascinating that almost all of these movies, you know, things like The Great Dictator. Have you guys seen The Great Dictator, by the way, with Chaplin?
I've seen that scene, the speech.
Okay, you guys have to see The Great Dictator. I know that it's Chaplin, but it's not a silent movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's considered one of the greater movies of all time.
It really is just an amazing movie. It's basically Chaplin is. This is 1939, I believe, when he makes this movie. And essentially he is mocking Hitler. And he sees, long before anybody else, in 1939, I mean, think about it, he was in power, and he had been in power, but he hadn't really started making some of the moves
towards... He invades Poland in September.
Right. And the movie is released in 1939, warning the world about this person that is basically a madman who has these tendencies to destroy the world, to take over the world. And there's also a person similar to Dave, a person who looks like the Great Dictator, who's Jewish, who the movie runs along parallel to both of their lives. And the famous speech, is sort of the culmination of that. And it's a fantastic movie. It just shows what a brilliant, brilliant performer Chaplin was. So if you don't, I sound like I'm like 97 right now, but Chaplin, watch some documentaries on Chaplin, watch some of his movies. Pretty incredible stuff.
You just made me think of it. Speaking of Nazi Germany, did you hear about this law that they were trying to pass because the guy from Facebook tried to he moved to Singapore and declared he was no longer a U.S. citizen?
Yeah,
and they're trying to pass this law that is almost the exact same as the one for the Jews leaving Germany during World War II.
Chuck Schumer and another politician. I can't think of the other senator's name, But essentially, Edwin, what's his face from Facebook,
Swarvin.
Yeah.
Saverin or Saverin or something.
Sovereign.
He was. If you saw the Social Network, he was sort of the guy who sort of had, I don't know, moral conflicts or whatever, but he still made some decent money. He's one of the first investors, a friend of his at
Paid
Harvard.
for the first server.
Paid for the first server.
It was a good movie.
And he is moving to Singapore, and so he's going to avoid like $100 million in taxes. I mean, think about how much money you have if you're paying.
He's no longer a U.S. citizen.
Right.
He renounced his U.S. citizenship to live in Singapore.
And there is, I believe, an exit fee. So if you do that and you leave the country, there is a tax, and I think that's why he has to pay the $100 million to leave the country, which is ridiculous. And I think he's not. I don't know if he was born here. I think he might have. He has dual citizenship with his home country, which I think is a South or Central American country. And so he's renouncing his citizenship, moving to Singapore, which has great corporate rates, which has great tax rates. And so what they are trying to do is retroactively tax him.
They're trying, and it's there's actually a legal term for a law that's passed to basically punish one person. I forget what it is, and it's illegal according to the Constitution. It straight up says no whatever. Bill of Attainder, I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
no Bill of Attainder.
It was something that was heavily discussed during the Terry Schiavo situation a few years ago, where Tom DeLay and the Republican House members were trying to pass a bill, and I think they did pass a bill, trying to stop the pulling of the feeding tube of Terry Schiavo. And they passed one bill for one person, and it was a huge, huge issue because it was a constitutional crisis.
Yes, but anyway, the important thing to know about this story is, I mean, everyone he hasn't come out and said it, but everyone knows that he's leaving for tax purposes. Singapore is always has got all these rich people living there because it's got a better tax rate for them. I think there's no capital gains tax. Their income tax doesn't go above a certain percent, even if they make way more money than like the top. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. But yeah, so Chuck Schumer and this other guy is trying to pass this law saying that if
Go ahead, belch.
It's trying to say if you pass this law, or if you try and leave the country for tax reasons, then you're going to be. I think what is it 30% of your income or something, or 30% of your huge number.
It's an enormous number on top of the 35% that he's paid on income taxes to the federal government, on top of his capital gains taxes that he's paid, on top of the sales taxes that he's paid, the state income tax.
And it brings up a good argument that or a good discussion, because everybody's now they're saying, he owes America because America made him what he is. And it's like it comes back down to this idea of, if you make money, is it really yours or is it communal?
We are getting into Ayn Rand territory.
Yeah,
we're getting into Atlas Shrugged.
Exactly what it sounds like. But we didn't talk about Atlas Shrugged. But
was that a good movie?
I liked it. I'm ready for number. You haven't seen it?
No.
Of course, the story's good, but
I'll check it out.
I thought it was too short.
I'm ready for.
But
it's 3 parts.
Yeah,
so
but I thought
it won't be short altogether.
But anyway, so
Your mom's short.
But yeah, so all these people are making these arguments, and it's kind of similar to the stupid Elizabeth Warren. All these rich people owe the American people because they use roads, and the roads are public owned. And I was like, well, taxes from gas pay for the roads, and they drive more. So if anything, they own more of the roads than we do. But so people bring up this argument that because he made all this money in America, he lived in our land and he helped protect, our military protected him, and all this, these very indirect arguments saying that, because of that he owes America and they should be able to take his money. We should tax more money.
He paid taxes while he lived here.
Yeah.
That's what he gave America, and when he renounced his citizenship, he paid the exit fee.
And on top of that, he helped make a product that everyone likes. And on top of that, it's his freaking property. I mean, if you're going to assume that he owes America more than what he has already given, or actually what he's already been taken from him, then you're assuming that every time he made a trade with somebody, somebody lost out. But if you want to get down into the nuts and bolts of it, for a trade to happen, any trade of anything, each person has to gain through the trade. or it won't
They
happen.
wouldn't make a trade.
Yeah. So if everyone was happy with the trade as he was doing it, and now all of a sudden he came out all right, and we have to take more money.
I
from
mean,
him.
although he's making less money for people. Stop with the
Yes.
microphone jiggling, please. You're going to drive our listeners crazy. I apologize for Chris Galt. He's a terrible host. What do you have to say for yourself?
I didn't break the mic stand.
See, you're so un-American. You know, with his Facebook IPO, he just made a product that made people tremendously wealthy. You know, he has paid business taxes, so he's had dual taxation. When you pay business taxes, you know, the American citizen is paying for that. Where it's dual taxation. I mean, he has paid more than his quote unquote fair share, and this is the stand that libertarians and people on the right have to make, is that it's not patriotic to pay taxes.
Absolutely not.
It's not patriotic to grow the government.
And that is exactly, oh my God, that infuriates me. Everything I read, it was about this article. It was like, there's so few things are more patriotic than paying your taxes and all this. Oh man, it just makes my blood boil. And I mean,
because this is the thing that we have to beat into our own people's heads and then make it a mantra. The American people are not the American government. We are separate. We are, you know, I am proud to be an American. I'm proud to have the Constitution as our guiding document. I'm proud to live in a country that can have a guy make enough money so his taxes are $100 million, let alone his earned income, because I would like to get there someday. Now, obviously, a career in libertarian politics, not so much. Probably won't be paying $100 million in taxes, but that's okay. I love my country enough to say my government is wrong, you know, and I love that a country affords me that ability, you know, and this is the problem that the president and Chuck Schumer and a lot of Republicans have, is that the rights come from God, the rights don't come from the government, and the American people are not the American government. We're separate, we're different, and you know, Pete, that's why I think people sort of understand that, because people love that they're Americans, but they don't love their government, as we talked about earlier. So,
well, yeah, and it comes down to issues like, oh, well, you know, if you don't like America, you can get out, and they're talking about, you know, if you don't want to support some war, or if you don't like America, you can get out because you don't support some welfare program. I mean, it's really an issue thing, but yeah, I mean, I like being American because, you know, the concept, the sovereign nation was created in a document that straight up says that man is free, they have life, liberty, and property, and they can, you know, overthrow their government if it's not doing well. Those are in the founding document of the United States.
Just overthrow, but reform and change and tweak.
But that isn't what Jefferson stopped at, and that's why I like it so much. He didn't stop there. He didn't say that it's a government and we can change the government. It says alter or abolish.
Right.
And it's just like that's in. So when you're talking about a country, I mean, I can't think of any other country in the history of man that can claim that its founding is synonymous with something like that.
Certainly not Canada.
No, yeah, not Canada. But I mean that's what.
You know,
do I think it's the government? I mean, God, no. The government is just a gang of thieves. All they are is a very highly organized, well-funded gang of thieves. And no, I'm not proud if they're taking money. If I'm getting my money taken from them so they can pay for some bridge.
And I'm proud that I live in a country where Creighton will not be jailed for that statement, just monitored by unmanned drones.
Yes.
Be careful, Spangle. We might be Canadian someday.
Yeah.
What? I'm telling you, you need to watch them. They're up to
I'm
something.
watching them.
They're all collecting on the border.
98% live on the American border.
They're going to take advantage of our zombie apocalypse.
Did you see James Hinchcliffe's girlfriend? It's already begun. He's taking our beautiful women. So before we go, the whole point of Creighton telling the story earlier about his girlfriend was that we were going to talk about Syria. And so let's kind of touch on that before we get to a couple other things, before we wrap up here, actually. Do you guys, this is one of the toughest parts about being a libertarian, because I watch day in, day out, I watch the coverage in Syria, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you want to go in and stop it and fix it. How do you guys feel the same way? Do you guys look at that and you go, in my heart, I want the American military to go in and put a stop to it. But I know we shouldn't, because we're the type of country that when we go in, we nation build. We're there for as long as possible. It backfires on us. There's blowback. There's consequences to that action. But it doesn't make you feel good, because you want to help these people who are dealing with this, dealing with their government, a murderous government that doesn't hold up the values that we have. I mean, so what do you guys think when you look at a country like Syria, where your aunt and uncle, of course, they have that reaction about using the military, about interventionism, because you look at it and you go, I want to help these people. I mean, what do you say to that, Creighton?
It's never an easy answer. The way that I kind of come to terms with it is that, I mean, yeah, it's a terrible thing, but in the long term, the ends tend to be worse than, what you're trying to stop. I mean, we tried for forever to, do this stuff with all these foreign countries in order to keep them from our back door, or whatever argument we can come up with. And we did it through the CIA, and then boom, 9/11 happened, and it's pretty much a direct result of that exact action. I mean, yes, we did a lot of it because we wanted to stop the Soviets, and I mean, if you just follow stuff back, if you just instead of looking at the exact what's happening right now, and look at what happened before that, and what happened before that, I mean, it's just like everything kind of builds on top of intervention after intervention. No, I don't want a guy going around killing all of his citizens. But at the same time, is there really anything that we can do other than go in there, take out a dictator, and probably put in a guy who's going to be just as bad? Because that's what our record shows. We take out dictators and put in people that are just as bad. In fact, we take out democratically elected presidents and put in dictators. I mean, so no, I don't want them to be dying. At the same time, how much, what's his name? Who's the guy? Assad. How much of his position is a result of U.S. involvement? Because I know, like Mubarak, his position was a result of U.S. involvement. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of these dictators are already dictators because the U.S. has helped them be that way. How much of that is our fault? And I don't mean that in the sense of the United States people. I mean that in the sense of like the operations of the Pentagon and the CIA in the past. Like we said,
it comes back
it's not
to
the
American people. The American people turn a blind eye to things like Libya, and they say, well, we don't care if it's not constitutional. We don't care that we're involved in a third war, because that guy's really bad. Even though Gaddafi is somebody that has been an enemy, but a lot of these guys in the Middle East, we've kept those, not kept, I guess is the wrong word, but we have implemented or encouraged or, funded is the other word, keeping some of these people in power just because you want that stability, because we want oil, and I know that it's that whole no blood for oil thing becomes mocked, but there is 50,000 people have died in Mexico in a civil war south of our border that spills over into our country. But we don't invade Mexico.
Or we don't invade North Korea, which has been a dictatorship and they don't even know that there's a world outside of North Korea, and that's existed since the 50s, and we've never done anything.
Mass starvation, whether it's forced starvation or just indirect starvation.
Did we do anything?
It's still a horrible
Did we take
situation.
any action during the killing fields?
Right.
Did we? I don't know.
With Pol Pot, no, we didn't. We have turned a blind eye, and I think that's the part that I really look at it and I go, there's dozens of horrible countries where atrocities take place. There are things in this country that take place that are horrendous that that we wish the government could do more about. And maybe we could fix some of that stuff if we stopped spending a lot of money on these overseas, I don't want to call them adventures, but these overseas actions. We could keep some of that capital, some of that money here and in our pocket, so we could donate to charities, so we could donate to private charities.
Historically, the greatest advancement in other countries has come through following in the footsteps of other great countries. I mean, If America really wants to change the world for the better, then it's not by going in there and blowing people up, which I know that seems like, that's that's the first thing. Bad people are doing stuff, blow them up. But, I mean, every single dictator, every single government, every single individual in government relies on people to be in power. Whether or not, it relies on popular opinion. And that goes the same in America, and it goes the same in Iran, it goes the same in North Korea. It relies on the opinion of the people. And you're not going to change opinions by blowing them up. You change them through an example. You lead by example. And it sounds naive. I know it sounds naive. But the fact remains that if we ever want to move past this world where all these people are killing each other in this godforsaken region, it's not going to be because we keep blowing up with more Predator drones. We spend more money on Predator drones. We buy more tanks. We already have the most tanks, the most military, by like every other country in the world combined, like 4 times over.
It was a Bill Maher joke. It was that we have to maintain a military budget larger than every other country in the world combined, so we can protect ourselves from Iranian nukes that don't exist, so they can't be put on North Korean missiles that won't be launched.
Yeah. No, but it's true. That is the stupidity of our foreign policy. Like, one of the arguments I made when Ron Paul got booed in the debates about I think he was talking about Pakistan, and it's like you're booing Ron Paul when he talks about what Pakistan wants this or that, yet you support. You probably, I don't want to infer, but you probably supported President Bush's foreign policy, which gave money to Pakistan. That's the stupidity of our foreign policy. We say we don't like a country, and then we give money to their dictator. We don't like Egypt, Mubarak, being a tyrant in Egypt, so we give him billions of dollars to be a tyrant in Egypt. That's our foreign policy. It really is. It's not much more, more than that. That's what we do. And, yeah, so when it comes down to it, if we want to affect change in other regions, it's not going to be by going around and who has the biggest guns. It's not, it really, because whoever has the biggest guns is whoever has the biggest balls is what it seems like people think. But it's going to be who has, who can lead by example. Can we be a nation that promotes liberty in a real sense? And not in the sense of, supporting the government, but supporting freedom. Because it's only a matter of time before this stuff just floods over and things like the NDAA pass, which happened. Right. And right now it's on the rocks because the judge was like, this is crazy.
Right.
But it's not done. It can go to the Supreme Court. There's unprecedented. They're talking about drone campaigns in America. Like, it's actually legit law that could be passed.
I have a friend who is not political at all, so she called me to ask me what she saw over her house in Greenwood, or more accurately, Center Grove. And if you're familiar with that area, she was driving by Mount Pleasant Church on Fairview, and she saw this thing. She said it wasn't a helicopter, and it wasn't a plane. And I said, was it this? And I sent her a picture of a drone, and she goes, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it was. It was a drone. And I said, well, we got some of those from the Super Bowl, so that might have been what it was. Why that area of Center Grove is not necessarily known for its crime. Maybe they caught somebody jaywalking across a cul-de-sac or something.
Yeah, and this isn't conspiracy theory stuff.
No, this
stuff has happened before.
Yeah, the FAA just lifted regulations to allow more drones.
Whether it's a drone or you go back in time, they didn't have drones, but the same kind of stuff happens. His history provides the greatest examples of how a government starts to fear its people and start using things that it does against other countries on its people. The Patriot Act passed, and we don't. The French Revolution. All that crap in the terror was completely legal. Every single thing that happened in the terror in the French Revolution was legal. Hitler came to power legally. In the Reichstag and all that kind of stuff. All those things, that was all legal. It's not like some madman came along and started breaking laws and took over by force. They passed laws to make it legal. It's not like it happens overnight. Yes, the NDAA is law right now.
Right.
It is law, and it's on the rocks with a federal judge in New York, but it's going to go to the Supreme Court, I guarantee you. It's law. It is legal for the government to do the things the NDAA
and
allows.
I think what it comes down to is we as Americans need to reconnect with our Constitution, the founding generation, those principles, and who we are as a nation.
And stop being pansies is really what it is.
And then stop
being afraid of the other.
Yeah, stand up to your government and say, no, this is wrong. This is against our values. And it's not Republican values or Democrat values or Libertarian values or Green Party values. It's American values.
Yes. And it's not I'm against, foreign, I'm against Arab states, Sharia law and all this because it's totally tyrannical. But in order to defeat tyrannical law, we must pass tyrannical law. What's the point? If we're trying to stop all these other countries because we think that they're going to be tyrants and we want to help these people, we do it by becoming slaves in our own system. I mean, it's contradictory. It doesn't make any sense, and it defeats the purpose.
Let's wrap up before Creighton gets naked and he eats Chris's face. So, what's coming up in the
pretty
next
face?
Is there anything? It looks delicious. Is there anything coming up? I know you guys are on college break, but what's coming up in the college circuit?
Nothing. Basically, it's summer break. We're doing we're gonna have leadership meetings and stuff. Just nothing fancy, but we got a national convention to go to here in a few months.
All right, so we'll keep you updated on all that kind of stuff at wearelibertarians.com. That takes you to our Facebook page. We post relevant stuff up there. That's where you can get the new episodes. If you don't download it through iTunes or the RSS feed. If you are listening and you're at a college campus in Indiana and you want to bring Gary Johnson to your college campus, Joe Hauptman's email address has been posted to that Facebook page. Get in touch with Joe, and let's start planning for Gary Johnson to come here in the fall and maybe make a college tour. So let's plant that seed and let's get started. So I want to thank everybody for joining us.
Last point.
Yes, sir.
Go watch The Siege. If you're listening, watch The Siege, or more importantly, watch Denzel Washington's speech at the end, because it really plays to the point I was trying to make.
And Canadian bacon. I think it's important for every American to see Canadian bacon. We'll see you next week.
Okay, just give me something to work
No
with.
way.
Come on.
I'm not into it.
Give me some.
No, it's embarrassing.
There's nobody here. Nobody can see. Come on.
I really just don't want to do it.
Just give me
okay?
some. Come on. You're really good at it.
Really?
Yes. Come on.
Are you
Wait till you see the moves.
No.
Come on.
No.
Please. Yes! Look at my moves. Look at these.
This podcast is produced by What is a Hoosier Productions.